Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Eden Zero Chapter 90. And actually, even pretty much before I get into the review itself, we kind of have to talk about the. I want to kind of briefly talk about the schedule going forward for Eden Zero because if I was looking at it correctly, like Eden Zero is still kind of like plowing forward with chapters. And in terms of even this week, honestly, like I'm glad we're still getting Eden Zero, but considering what's going on in the world, you'd think that there would be some kind of like you'd think that they would try and kind of like I don't want to say necessarily delay chapters being released, but you'd think they kind of have some kind of like protective system in place, system in place or something like just kind of release, just kind of like open up the gap a little bit between the release of chapters or something, but I don't know. I do realize that Eden Zero it runs on a different magazine in Weekly Shonen. In Weekly Shonen, like I believe and the publisher is Kodansha. So maybe from which Kodansha themselves have a little bit more of a little bit more of what they're doing in this crisis. I don't know, but yeah, I hope just considering what's going on in the world and whatnot. I hope Hiro Mashima is gonna be safe. He's gonna be safe, like releasing his releasing his releasing chapters of Eden Zero through all this, um, and and hopefully if it gets, I think it's one of those where Kodansha's probably playing it by ear, and if it gets worse, that's when they'll like step in and they'll take the precautions and whatnot. Um, but yeah, anyway, let's get into the chapter itself, which is Eden Zero Chapter 90. Okay, so before I get into the major details of the chapter, one thing I do want to talk about is the tone of this chapter, because for me, one thing that was interesting with this chapter is that there was a greater sense of urgency and how even the simplest immediate actions of the characters felt like it could make or break their success this time around. Like even with something as Shiki pretty much swiftly like taking out a gang of thugs, it still it still had this vibe that the two things still had this vibe that yeah that everything needs to be like that would need to like just not just rush out and not give the enemy any time in order to retaliate or attack or anything like the two things like it gave off the vibe that the two things our heroes can't afford to do in this situation is waste time or get caught. Like every decision has to be swift and decisive because if our heroes waver in any of these, then that turn just gives Drakken Joe the opportunity he needs to strike back, and that's one thing you basically want to prevent at least until you know for sure that you have the upper hand, which is which is the other part of this, which is like you basically have to make sure that you're taking away leverage, any kind of leverage from these. Yeah, make sure you take away leverage, any kind of leverage that Dragon Joe can use against you. So, and in this case, leverage would be like freeing Labilia and make sure that no one gets basically caught or anything. So yeah. Um, Knowing that though, let's talk about the elephant in the room with this chapter, which is Sabir, which is that Sabir appeared, and he's still found a way in order to get involved with our heroes. Which, between that and the fact that the Labilia is in a much, it was pointed out that Labilia is in a much better position than she was in World 29. Like she wasn't even interrogated. Like at this point in time of World 30, she wasn't even interrogated compared to World 29, where she was brutally interrogated, tortured, and whatnot. So that in itself shows that there are changes happening in this timeline, but at the same time, everything's relative, and I imagine there are still some events that are destined to still happen. And I think Sabir's death might be one of those events it'll where it where Sabir's death is kind of like Sabir is kind of still on the chopping block to die. It's just a matter of when now, because with him being here, he's already changed a bit of timeline on when that happens. And if I had to take a quick guess, I'd say that Sabir is going to die probably somewhere in the process of helping our heroes escape. And I imagine when that happens as well, and I imagine well, to go along with that as well. I imagine that's somewhere in that escape is probably where Weiss is also going to lose his arm. I think again, like I think Weiss losing his arm is still something that is on the chopping block as well. Um, Now, let's get to the focus of this chapter, which is Ivory versus Daichi, and really, what more is there to say about that fight other than Daichi didn't even have hope or a prayer of winning? Like the moment he locked eyes with Ivory, with that sister, he was just done. Like no hope, no, don't even think about winning. You are gonna lose. That you like really Daichi was not if just the fact that he thought he would that she was in the same league as him was even more stupid. Like seriously, number one rule when engaging Ivory in combat is never assume she's your equal in the art of torture and interrogation. And like that pretty much sums up the mistake Daichi made here. That pretty much sums up the mistake he made. Like just you basically have to assume in fighting Ivory, the thing you gotta assume is you're gonna die. You just gotta go fucking all out. Like don't even you just gotta go all out. Don't even bother wondering if you're stronger or not. Don't bother like even freaking like taunting her. Just kill her. Like don't. Yeah, you're but then again at the same time, like I said, you were pretty much out of your league, Daichi. Like there was no way you were gonna defeat Ivory. Well, like yeah, it was like yeah, there was no way aside, and even taking out the whole interrogation thing, even putting that stuff aside, Ivory's power is still, as proven in this chapter, Ivory's power is just so insane in itself. Like, take out the torture and interrogation tactics. Ivory's just a badass in herself. So, like, yeah, there's just, between these two factors, Daichi, you just didn't have a chance, bro. Which, I guess the other lesson to take away from this is never assume the healer can't still kick ass. But that's something that we already kind of knew with Ivory. It's just too bad Daichi couldn't learn that before it was too late. And trust me, I play World of Warcraft. You basically see my username, guys. I'm a fan of World of Warcraft, and trust me, I know I've fought alongside healers. Healers can kick ass. I've fought along and fought with healers. They can kick ass just as much as the big dogs can. Now. Now, one interesting revelation we get in this fight is that the Four Shining Stars' powers aren't actually ether gear, but instead something called optimization of ether. And if I had to take a guess what that means, just pretty much based on what we've learned about like machines, robots, androids, all that stuff, is that I think with the Starshine's power, what they do is they take ether from the air atmosphere and wield it in a way that wield it as a conduit to help to activate their abilities. And okay, so offhand, after defeating Daichi, she pretty much says, I just realized it is best when I'm the dom. Like, she basically just admitted to being a dominatrix. And, for as tired as the meme has become, I should also say this whole fight was better than anything spawned from 50 Shades franchise. In fact, one thing I also do gotta say, going off something I previously said, definitely a few chapters back, is that, again, this is one of those fights that's just so epic, but also so hilarious that it kind of made me want to know even more of the Torturers Anonymous, even more, again, about the Torturers Anonymous meeting would look like. Because if it spawns such interesting people like Daichi and Ivory, then there's something to explore. There's something to explore here with that Torturers Anonymous shit. And, again, for as goofy as it is, I can't help feel that that Majima might be subtly kind of doing some world building with that there. Like we're gonna see more people from these Torture Anonymous meetings and whatnot. Like I think like we've already met Daichi, and I think even like what was his name? What was his name? Like from Gato, I think. Like Gato, like from Gato from like Gato the Whip, the Whip guy. I think he was also a Tortures Anonymous member too. So yeah, I think we're probably gonna meet more of these guys. Now, so now getting back to something more serious though, let's talk Witch, cause that death glare and her words are enough. Like her that death glare that Witch gives to like to Prince Laguna, and her words, what she says in this chapter, are enough to know that Witch carries a dark history on her shoulders, one that extends beyond just an obligation to Shiki. And if I had to take a stab on what that might be, just the fact that she made a point of saying protecting her family is her duty as the Shield of Edens, and just the way she said it tells me that there was a point in her history where she failed to live up to that duty, or in this case, unable to protect Ziggy in some way. And if I'm right about that, then this is a whole new can of worms that could be that could be a bit of a precursor to a pretty dark backstory. Because beneath that visor, there was pure intensity in her eyes, and whatever she experienced changed her in a way where she refuses to let what happened in the past happen again. In fact, I think a backstory is whether or not we get an idea of what Witch experienced back then or not. I think it is still necessary to get a backstory, because in some ways this also kind of just builds up just how dangerous the Stalker Cosmos are compared to what we've experienced. And once we actually get there, we're probably looking at some One Piece Grand Line type threats at this point. Like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Dead Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.